Welcome to another episode of Behind the Dreamers. I'm your host, Jennifer Loading, and we are talking to the achievers, the creators, the magic makers, and the dreamers. These are our friends. These are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. Well, I'm so excited about my guest today. He has kind of a fun and unique thing going on here, but he embarked on as a financial advisor, only to realize that his clients faced a bleak prospect of financial freedom through traditional investments. Recognizing the need for a different approach, he left the industry and moved his way into passive real estate. Remarkably, he achieved retirement at a young age of 28, and ever since he has been tirelessly sharing his knowledge, helping countless others replicate his journey. So I'm going to be excited to hear from him. I know you guys are as well, and see what he's up to and how he's helping his clients and all that good stuff. But before I get him on here, I do need to do a few announcements. So first of all, today's episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Photography. If you are a creator needing post-production, consultation, or promotion, Walt is your guy. Whether short films, YouTube videos, photography work, or a new headshot, he can help you find a solution to match your needs. To learn more about Walt and his work, you're going to want to go to photosbywalt.com. And also, if you're one of our amazing listeners and you are in a place where you want to kickstart your leadership journey, then you're in for a treat because I've got something special for you. It's free tools to accelerate your path to becoming a more effective leader. Did you know that they did a study and they discovered that a whopping 63% of consumers prefer doing business with companies that share their personal values and beliefs? It's a game changer. Understanding your core values isn't just crucial for your business growth, it's also a cornerstone for effective leadership. And so whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or an aspiring creator, identifying your core values is going to be a fundamental step in helping you build a framework as a successful leader. One of my favorite mentors, John Maxwell, says, everything rises and falls on leadership. You probably know that one, Chris. So if you're eager to access the valuable resources and embark on your journey to becoming a better leader, then I've got you covered. You're going to want to head on over to Linktree/Jennifer Loading, and that's linktr.ee/Jennifer with two N's and then Loading, LOEHDING. There you'll be able to unlock your free leadership resources and take your first step to becoming a more effective leader. All right, so with that, all those words I got out, I want to welcome my guest to the show. So Chris Miles, he is the cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. He's an authority on empowering entrepreneurs and professionals to make their money work for them immediately. Chris is not just an author, but also the host of the Money Ripples podcast. His expertise has earned him recognition in prestigious publications such as U.S. News and CNN Money, as well as features on influential platforms like Entrepreneurs on Fire and Bigger Pockets. While his company Money Ripples, he has solidified a reputation for delivering rapid and substantial financial results to his clients. And as if that weren't impressive enough, Chris is also an avid marathoner. So we got some stuff in common there. So welcome to the show, Chris. So excited to have you here today.
Same here, Jennifer. Appreciate you having me on today.
It's so fun. I had to get like a whole mouthful out in that first 3 minutes.
I'm impressed. I didn't think you could do it, but that's impressive.
I know. So get the important stuff out. Well, I'm excited to have you here and to talk about what you're doing. So let's open this up. Tell us a little bit about what it is you're doing right now with your clients.
Yeah, right now what we do is we do two things. We really, ultimately, the bigger picture is help people really get their money working harder for them so they don't have to work so hard for their money. They can become work optional, where they work because they want to, not because they have to. And they do that because they have enough passive income coming in to give them that time freedom back. So they can spend time with their family, doing what they love, spend time with those that they love, doing passions, whatever it might be, even if they decide to keep working, but now they get to have that power in their control.
It's a little bit more like flexibility and autonomy, so to speak.
Exactly. It's ultimately that freedom, right? Like it's one thing to have a lot of money, but it's another thing to actually have that freedom in your life to choose how to live your life.
Yeah. There was a guy on my show a while back, Mo Salami, was talking about that. He had I think 3 or 4 degrees. I think he's from Britain, but he had 3 or 4 degrees and he was working, I believe, in the pharmaceutical industry. And so he realized that he had, the nice house, he had the money, he had the degrees, and he was, 6-figure income. He thought that was success. And then he goes into this store one day and he lands on a Jack Canfield book. I believe that's who it was. And he read the back cover of it and decided that, I guess maybe at this point he was starting to question, what is success? Like, what does that really look like? Is it having all that money, like you're saying, but you're working in this grind on holidays and weekends and not having really that freedom? And then he ended up basically just switching careers, went in and worked for Tony Robbins for a really long time and helped him, did really well there and then kind of went on his home. And now he's doing like, I believe he's helping like digital marketers, but it's all his thing now.
That's right. I think what many people don't realize when they look at entrepreneurs is they don't realize that, yes, there's that period of hustle and grind and whatnot. But what people also don't see is for many people that might seem successful on the outside, and I know because I'm associated with a lot of these guys who are multimillionaires, like make tens of millions in their businesses, yet they still don't have freedom. So they might even post on social media that their life looks great and they're going to this beach and that place and that place. But at the end of the day, in the back of their minds, they still know that they're stuck. They still know that they're a slave to their own business. Even though they created a massive business with lots of employees and systems and everything else to make millions of dollars, they're still stuck working in their business. They don't know how to get away from that. And that's something that if you have passive income outside of your business, it really frees that up. It gives you that choice. I do agree that, yes, you need to create systems in your business to create freedom there too, to buy your time back. But it's also great to know that when you do go work, you work because you love it. You work because you want to, because you know you're making an impact and blessing people's lives, not because you have to maintain that lifestyle.
Right. Yeah, it's I see it as a very different outlook. I think about that even with my podcast, because I do that so much for fun. And if I had to do that where I knew that I had to grind, right, make it work, would I be having near as much fun with it? And of course, we all want to make money and we want things to go in that right direction. But I do think there's some truth to that when you can be able to a place where you can go, okay, I can do something because I enjoy doing it, not because I'm slaving to get it done.
That's right. Yeah. You never want to be in a place where if for whatever reason that business is gone, that you're broke. Right. Yeah. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of seemingly successful people that if their business were to disappear today because they were no longer an essential business, as we heard in 2020 and things like that, right? All that kind of crap that happens. If that were to happen, there's a lot of people that'd be just as broke as this next person. And so you want to start getting those things in place now to create that freedom for tomorrow.
Yeah. And I love it. And so you started out in the financial side of business and then kind of moved into this whole passive real estate type business, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I was selling the dream that you just sacrifice and suffer and save enough till your 70s. Someday you might have a life, right? And I found out that wasn't real. And it's funny because I got gravitated to that because the whole thing inspired me when I became a financial advisor over 20 years ago, when I was doing the traditional mainstream financial advising. What inspired me was actually my dad. And not always in a good way, because he was that penny pinching Depression era type of saver, right? And he was always about spend nothing, save everything you can. And so, but the problem was that I remember him also saying, man, you know what? I think this job is going to literally kill me, because by his 40s, he had already had strokes from the stress that had been created. I'm in my mid to late 40s now and thinking of having strokes. It just doesn't even seem real, right? But he already had them by that point. And so I vowed I never wanted to be like that. And so I actually, when I went to college, I decided I wanted to become an entrepreneur instead, because I want to control my time and my destiny. And the first thing that came up was becoming a financial advisor, because, it was kind of cool to think I could learn more about money, but it was also, I wanted to, help my dad, give him some of his life back so he doesn't just work until he dies like he thought his job would literally kill him. So I did that for several years. And then he actually reached out to me and said, hey, Chris, when are you going to look at my finances? When are you going to become my financial advisor? Which I never expected, because he was always very guarded with his money, never wanted us to know how much money he had. So I sat down with him. He says, Chris, I'm 61 years old. I want to retire someday. Can I do it now? I looked at his money. He had a paid off house. He was totally debt free, paid it off early. He had saved up all of his money in his 401ks, getting the match, everything the good boys and little girls are supposed to be doing, right? And what happens? I tell him, I said, Dad, if you want to retire today, you better hope you die in 5 years, because that's how long your money will last you before you run out. And he's like, well, what else can I do? I said, I don't know, because you did everything right, according to what I teach as a financial advisor. And that bugged me, because he was the inspiration for me getting in. And yet I couldn't help him to have that freedom that I was hoping he would get. And I sold myself on the dream. I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I thought if I scrimp and save for decades, then I could be free too. Right. And it wasn't until a few weeks later, a friend pointed out, he says, Chris, well, how many of your clients are really financially free where they don't worry about money? I said, well, they all worry about money. Even if they're retired, they still worry about running out of money in retirement. He's like, well, that's a good, Chris, way to help no one. Well, how about this? How many of you guys are financially free as financial advisors, not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing these investments? And when I realized that there was guys working in our office since the late 1970s, and yet they were still a slave every day as a financial advisor, I knew that there was a problem. That this was, I was basically like, I was selling hopium, right? Like people were all smoking their hopium, hoping that someday this would actually work. And it has not worked really ever. I would say less than 1% of the time you actually see people doing this method where it actually works out. That's why we have so many Americans that are desperate, begging for Social Security because they need it. And so that's when you said, like, when you talk about alternative investments, it's like when the student's ready, the teacher appears.
Right.
And the same friend that asked me those key critical questions, I trained him to be a financial advisor, but he left to go do real estate investing. And he was telling me how much money he and his dad were making, which I thought was too good to be true. I thought there's no way, because it's going to take you decades to make this much money. Like I had those financial advisor blinders on. But when I started to realize that it wasn't about how much you save up, it's about how much that money pays you each and every month or quarter, right? When I realized that was the secret, it was about the income, not about the accumulation. It's about the cash flow, the passive income from it. That's when my mindset flipped around. And actually later that year, by the time I started to really apply it in my own life, I was able to retire when I was 28 years old.
Wow. It's incredible. Well, and it's interesting. I know so many people that are in that real estate investment, and and it's interesting because my background, I was in network marketing for 22 years, completely different in different industry, but we're still talking about creating like this passive income, right? Like that's why you build these teams and you get people on there so that you will hopefully keep generating income as this thing keeps growing. So I understand, that, but you're right. I don't get into the financial, like, I don't know much about 401ks and all that stuff. We've got them. I'm not that person. I always find, where are my people that know all that stuff and they can tell us? But you're right. I think we do. We get so hung up on doing these systems that we think are the right. We never really, I think it's like this with everything. We never really get out until somebody shows us there's another way to do this and be more effective at what you're doing.
Yeah, I'll give kudos to network marketing too, even though I know it's got a lower success rate than what people would like. But the truth is, business has a low success rate in general, right?
Yeah.
And I have several network marketing clients too. I put that in the category of residual income, right? Because if you've probably already learned this, you talk about leadership. Right. Leadership is essential. There's management that's still needed to happen, because every time in network marketing I've ever had leaders, they walked away. They said, "I'm retiring. I'm just going to live off the income and live the dream and do nothing."
Yeah.
Never worked out. Their team always starts disintegrating and weakening. And then they find themselves right back in it again. Right. The cool thing is, like, I have one couple, they train thousands in their team. I kept telling them, I was like, listen, like, you guys make great. I mean, like 700,000 plus a year residual in your business. I said, this is your time right now. This is the time to start getting that passive income as well, because
taking the money and moving.
You just never know what the company's going to do, right? You're really an independent contractor. You're not sure if they might make changes that either one, you don't agree with, and you're going to change companies, and that's hard to start from scratch again. Or two, like something just happens where it might cut back, or something happens in your own life. So that's what they're doing now. They're actually taking that money, investing it in a way to create passive income to the point where they want to have $25,000 a month coming in from that. So then when they get on their calls with their team, they're literally saying to people, they're like, listen, like, look at this. Yeah. We don't even need anybody to join. We don't need you at all. In fact, but we got a great opportunity to help you in this company. And they come from this bigger position of power versus saying, we got to keep recruiting. They're like, listen, we don't have to recruit a single person. In fact, we could sell this business off and be done.
Yeah.
But this company rocks. You need to be a part of this if it's a good fit for you, and that power is just so much fun to watch, because the funny thing is, ironically, is when you really don't need the money, that's exactly when everybody wants to pay you money, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think that goes with that whole idea of the desperation, right? When you're desperate, and people can see that, right? Like they feel the desperation. And I think anybody listening to this, I'm in the, I know so many people in network marketing. This is probably actually a really good episode of which you've touched on this, because I think that, yes, there are a lot of people that do okay. I mean, I know some really phenomenally done well in the network marketing space, and then there are a lot that don't, right? But I think that what sets those people apart is they get to a place where they're doing things like this and they're not in that desperation anymore now, right? Like, and so many of them I know have other endeavors. They have, like, I know one that they purchased like a spa in Florida. So they're high up in
Yeah.
network marketing, but now they got this spa that's doing things. So they start branching out, and you get into that place where you no longer have to come from, I need you here to pay my check. Now it's like, if you want to join, this is something great, because I'm going to show you what I'm doing over here to create this wealth, and you can follow along and learn and be, have the advantage of being in here. And it's a whole different mindset.
It's a whole new level of leadership too, right? Because it's not just about, because I mean, the great thing with network marketing is that a lot of the business is handled for you. Like, you don't have to worry about doing payroll. That sucks. Just that alone, getting rid of that is awesome. And not to mention, marketing materials are made for you. I mean, you're really just doing sales and leadership. I mean, that's the biggest thing you're doing. Operations are handled, fulfillment's mostly handled, all for you, right? But yeah, like when you start to expand beyond that, say, like, actually it's funny because that same couple, they actually are starting a spa, like a franchise. It's funny you said that, because they're like, yeah, we're going to do like this laser spa type treatment. There's nothing like it in this area. We're going to start doing that. And it kind of enhances their health coaching that they're doing as well. Right.
That's awesome.
And that's fun when you start to align things with your passions and doing those kind of things. And I'll tell you, like, this is really important, because what they're doing the very thing that I didn't want to have happen to someone close to me, right? That's been in network marketing for several decades. I mean, the guy listened to Bob Proctor, actually got coached by Bob Proctor and did all this stuff. And he made literally $10 million plus in network marketing over the last couple of decades. But he has zero to show for it. So now he's in his late 60s. He's built up a new business. He actually got booted out of his previous company. Even though he thought he'd be there forever, he was one of the founders. They booted him out due to drama and lies, right? So they booted him out. He had to start from scratch, and he's now got up already to multiple six figures. But he's just like, I'm done. Like, I'm almost 69 years old. Can I just get to the point where I can enjoy my labors? And the thing is that he didn't do is he never bought assets like a cash flow along the way. He always just spent the money, always reinvest in business. And this goes outside of network marketing. Anytime someone tells me they always reinvest in their business, they're not reinvesting, they're just spending. Because it's one thing you can generate more income, and that's good. You should reinvest some money. And in the beginning, that's essential. But once you get to a point of maturity, you're going to invest some money into your business, but you need to take those profits home and start creating freedom at home first, so that even if the business is gone, you can keep continuing on.
This is good. It's good. Thank you for sharing that. And I agree. It's in all areas. It's not just, we just happen to get onto the network marketing talk, but it is, I think, in everything that we do. And I think that's why everybody, they work so hard to get this 401k, and they go up. And like I said, I don't know a lot about the financial. That's not my thing, but I understand enough to know enough and how that works. And I feel like we do all these systems the way we're taught to do, but it isn't. It's never enough. And so I appreciate, you sharing that from your perspective on what that needs to look like and what they can do. So I want to ask you kind of a fun question. You mentioned, going in and becoming a financial advisor, kind of that was your starting ground. Did you know at a young age that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or did you just, when you got to this place where you saw what was going on with your dad, that was the turning point for everything?
That's a great question. If I were to say something that I'd probably never say on almost any show I've ever been on, right? And you're probably like the 100 and some odd show I've been on this year, is, now I think about it, I probably was somewhat entrepreneurial, but I was such a shy, reserved child that I never thought that was even a possibility, right? But I think back, like, one of the first things I did, entrepreneurial speaking, was my mom did like Herbalife, right? Back in the 80s, we had the buttons, the lights that lose weight now, ask me how. I'd wear it to school, like, and I had like Amway stuff at home. And so I remember they had the shakes,
Yes.
And of course, protein shakes tasted like crap back then, right? I mean, some of them still do, let's be honest. But so anyways, I remember learning about calories, and I'd read the calories on the label. And so I was like, oh, what if I mix this with Tang? Back when people drank Tang. Right. And then I'm going to throw in this and that. And I started like mixing all these flavors together to create my own version of shake. But I put the price based on the number of calories that were in it, based on my limited first or second grade math skills. So I told my mom, I showed it to her. It's like, here, we can sell this drink for $16. And she's like, good luck with that, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was my first entrepreneurial venture. It was a total flop, never got off the ground. Not until I started mowing lawns when I was about 11 years old. Then I started making a little bit of money doing something on my own.
I mowed yards too, believe it or not. So I love to ask that question because I think for so many people, I think, like my parents were both entrepreneurs when I was growing up. So I sort of got to view that as the child, kind of the lifestyle, but they always worked really hard, like really hard at what they did. And my mom had executive suites. She was a bookkeeper. And so she had these executive suites in different offices, and they would, house people in there, and she did all like their typing and their bookkeeping. And I worked in there sometimes, and I went to work for one of her clients at one time. So I kind of sort of got to see that entrepreneurial spirit. But it was funny because when I was a kid, I used to do things like I would always like try to, like you did your tank thing. Like I'd be trying to create things and figuring out how I'm going to hustle and make money. And I would be like, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And it's so funny because when I look at everything I do now, if I really look at the big picture, a lot of the things I do are very similar to a lot of things I was doing when I was a kid, like talking to people and rallying people to do. We didn't have podcasts back then, but we'd get our tape recorder and record ourselves and make little productions and all that stuff. And so I always love to ask that question to kind of see where you come from, because something happens, right? Like something happens and it sort of kind of twists them in and says, oh, now I want to be an entrepreneur. But I still think we have some of that, like you have that leadership, some of that leadership back there that kind of directs you in that way.
Yeah, it is interesting to see that. And when you talk about your parents, it's interesting, that influence, because I had two very contrasting parents. Because my mom was the dreamer, right? She was the starving artist, as they call, so she was an artist trained by the same master painter that trained Bob Ross. And taught those same classes, same kind of art technique as you saw Bob Ross do. She was doing the same thing, and at that same time. And my dad, though, was like, you work for this company for 40 years. Unfortunately, the company wasn't loyal to him either, because he would think he'd worked there for 40 years, but then they would lay him off, or they would cut back on it. He would do sales and stuff. And so they would cut back on his territory and give it to somebody else that he did all the hard work for. And he hated that, so I really think that did influence me to want to take control of my own life, right? To say, yes, I could go work. But even when I was going to college, because, your mom goes to college, but, when my dad, he said, like, you got to go to college, so I'd be the first one in the family to go to college. But even when I was there, I saw the professors. I was like, I don't want to live a 9-to-5 life where they're going to tell me what to do and how I'm going to live my life and how much I'm going to make. And so even my initial intention before I became a financial advisor was to actually be a business consultant. I was going to do that, go in and tell companies why they treat their employees like crap, and then walk out with a big check, right? That was going to be my career plan. But I wanted to get real life business experience. And that's why I started looking for something to do, dropped out of college to then go be a financial advisor. And I stayed dropped out. I never finished my degree after that.
Yeah, well, you've done good. It sounds like you're doing some good stuff and you're moving in the right direction and getting to live it out the way, on your terms. So I think that's awesome. That's the ideal path we want to go on.
Definitely doing better than I would have got with that sociology degree. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I don't ever like to say college is a bad thing, but a lot of people have done really well without it too. I think it goes both ways, right? Like I know so many entrepreneurs that even the ones that have gotten their degrees that are like doing completely different things than they would have done. I mean, I studied accounting. Can you imagine? I couldn't. There's no way. I actually had a guy come on my show. He worked with Zig Ziglar for 20 something years. So he would travel all around the world. He's here locally. I'm in Dallas. So I see him here locally, but he came on my show and he's like, no, you should not be an accountant.
Don't follow your bookkeeping mom's, type of pathway, right?
Yeah, not exactly. So I wanted to ask you, what would be, like we've talked about passive income, so what would be, because you're, retired yourself at age 28. So I'm sure people listening to this are going to be like, what the heck? How do we do that? What would be maybe some advice to give to somebody young that's like, maybe this is where they're at. They're starting their business and they're trying to get into maybe thinking, hey, I want to do some passive income.
Well, if you're in business, like your number one investment should be your business, especially when you're just starting out. And that's why I meant, like, when you're reinvesting, hustle's a season. It's not a lifestyle. Right. So don't fall in a trap that most business owners get into, where they end up hustling the rest of their lives. And then they end up like our family member, where, he's made over $10 million in network marketing, and then he's still hustling. And he's at a season where he doesn't want to hustle anymore. So still, you got to hustle in the beginning. But once you start to do that, focus on profit. I recommend reading a book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Okay. Great book. Even if you're not going into accounting, it's still a great book. The essential part of it is, rather than saying, here's my revenue coming in from my business minus expenses, and if I have anything left over, that's what I pay myself. You flip it on its head. You say, what do I want to pay myself? then what's the amount of money I'm making in the business? And then that's the amount of expenses I have to work with.
It's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Very different way of doing it. I mean, imagine if everybody did that as an entrepreneur, where they actually said, I'm going to set my wage. Because if you're a CEO of your business, you better dang well get paid like you're the CEO. I mean, come on, Tim Cook with Apple gets paid over $100 million a year just to be a CEO. And he doesn't do that much, right? Like most of the work is done beneath him, not with him. So really make sure you pay yourself first. I think that's really important. And that's what I mean. Like bring that money home and then keep some of that as profit. Start building up that savings. Once you do that, and especially once you get into a nice, more mature phase in your business, and you start to really get some good profits coming in, take those profits and then take whatever percentage it might be, take that and invest it. Do not do the same old crap like the 401ks and the IRAs everybody talks about, because when you take your money and invest, you do not want to lock it up in prison. Almost every financial expert and advisor will tell you the same thing. If you really dumb it down, they say, invest your money in the stock market and lock it away there. In fact, you might put in an IRA or 401k where you get slapped with penalties and taxes if you try to take it out too early. And then they're going to say, pay off your house, right? Which is also a prison. And I'll tell you, like the people that learned that was a prison the most was in the last recession, because if you had equity in your house and you needed money and you wanted to get to it, the banks wouldn't let you. I remember I tried to get the access because I was a mortgage broker before the recession hit. This is why I retired twice, because I screwed up the first time. So I got to the point where I was able to out of the rat race, but then I was coming back out. I was launching a new business, teaching people how to do what I'm teaching now, right? Started to do that in 2007. And then, of course, everything starts getting really, really tight. Our marketing that we were doing was catered towards real estate investors. So they were going broke, not paying us. Wow. So and I was like, well, how do I was putting all the money in my house because as a mortgage broker, I thought, well, I can just pull it back out whenever I need it because the banks will just give me the money, won't they? Not when you need it. That's the thing, is that banks will only give you money when you want it, never when you need it. So when I went into the bank, even in the summer of 2007, they said, oh, we're sorry, we don't like business owners anymore. You can't get access to that money. That's in your house. Even though you put extra in there just last week, we won't let you get it back. And so I saw money trapped in there. And then, of course, the mortgage, the lien holder was owned by Lehman Brothers, which went under, right? They wouldn't let us get the money either. Even though I had people willing to buy my house and get me out from that mortgage, they wouldn't let me do it. So eventually I foreclosed on that house. I had a knock on the door. Somebody came and bought it for half the price that I purchased it for 3 years prior. And then I ended up having to let that house go. They eventually did give me a $300 settlement check as a sorry for the mortgage fraud, but that's the thing. Like I lost all that, literally hundreds of thousands of equity I had trapped in the house was gone because I locked it away. So the key is when you're a business owner, get that money liquid, make sure it's available to use in your control, in your power. That's why we teach about things like on our site, like infinite banking is a cool strategy to use, especially if you're in business, things like that. Keep that money in your control that you can still use and access, but still make money with it. And then from there, as you start to build that up, I would say once you get over $100,000 of savings, then you can start to diversify and get your money out. Doing things like, for example, like I lent my money out. I lent out $50,000, and basically the guy says, "Here, I'll pay you 15% for a short-term loan." So 15% per year. He had my money for 3 months. He basically paid me almost 4% for 3 months. Most people don't even make 4% in a year with their savings account, right? But I was able to make from that $50,000 about $1,600 from that money. Actually, a little bit more than that. But anyways, a little shy of $2,000. Another thing you could do too is like, sometimes you can go give your money to other investors, let them do things with it, like real estate investors, for example. So you have it backed by real assets. You could there's one company that pays our clients like 1% a month, just like clockwork. So if you have $100,000, they'll pay you $1,000 a month. You do nothing for it. So you don't even have to deal with tenants, toilets, or trash, right? You don't have to deal with all that stuff that people always talk about. It's like, especially in network marketing, they're always like, I'm going to buy that investment property, right? Like I'm going to do this, after I pay off my house, then I'll buy that investment property. And then they do it and they buy in their own backyard and the numbers suck. They don't make any real money with it. If they're lucky, it appreciates and makes up for their mistakes, right? That kind of stuff. But you can avoid all that. You can avoid that hassle and invest in things where other people are doing the investing. You're literally just the financer. I'm in one partnership right now where I'm a 70% partner. They're 30%. I finance everything. but they're taking my money and they're buying raw land with it and then turning around and selling it at retail price to really, it could be investors. It could be people that just want land to go do, go shooting on or, ride their ATV around or whatever, or build a house, whatever it might be. We sell it to them at almost double the price that we bought it for. And we sell it to them on terms like we're the bank. So they'll get a loan from us basically for, 5, 10, 15 years where we charge them interest. And then we get paid monthly payments as they pay off that loan to us. So the cool thing is, like, I've invested probably $350,000 in the last 2 years with that, but my cash flow is now $8,300 a month. I'm making over $100,000 a year just from 350 grand. Like, that's awesome. That's for some people, that's more than pays their expenses. They're like, I'm done. I'm work optional now, right? So that's the kind of the cool thing that you can do when you start to realize that there's a whole other world outside of stocks, and which you make literally like not much. Like the average stock market return is 7.73% for the last 30 years. But most mutual funds that you invest in won't even make that. Like over 90% will do worse than the stock market. So you're hoping to make 7% if you're lucky. And where I can make double-digit returns over here, and it's not just growing my money, it's actually cash to me, not even touching the money, the principal that I have.
That's good. Okay. So for our listeners, those of you that want to figure this out, you need to contact Chris because he's got it figured out. I love it, Chris. Thank you. It's awesome. So I want to ask you kind of a fun question. This is going to be like about you and your journey, because you've told us a lot about what you're doing. And I love the fact that you're in a place where you're able to live your life the way you want, and you're able to show other people how to do this. And so I want to know what you've learned about yourself through this journey. Like, what's been the big takeaway for you in all of this?
The biggest takeaway is the number one asset is you. You are the number one asset investment, right? That's the one thing they can't take away. Like, even when I had my house foreclosed on in 2009, I pretty much had to sell off almost everything I owned. I didn't file for bankruptcy, but still I was over $1 million in debt after being financially free, right? I had to dig out of that hole. The thing that that gave me faith was that I knew there had to be a reason behind it, right? There had to be a purpose. There are no accidents in life, I believe, right? And even if it meant that if it just what I was going through would help somebody else, I knew that would be worth it coming out the other side. And the great thing is when I had all my stuff stripped away, because like in my late 20s, when I first did it, I would buy the big house to show off. I mean, I literally told the realtor, I want the wow factor. So when I have people come to my house, they look up and they go, wow, right? Because I wasn't trying to fill up my bank account. I was trying to feed my ego. Yeah. And when you don't value yourself, sometimes you'll try to put things in front to say, well, look at my value, look at my car, look at my house, especially with the media, social media and stuff nowadays, it's even worse, right? So I put those things in front to say, look at my value. But when that was all taken away, I had to find out where the true value was. And it was within me. That stuff wouldn't exist had I not produced. So when you realize that when you start to really work within your genius and you focus on how do you use that genius to serve people. And I'll tell you, this is the number one thing I learned. If you ever want to stop asking the question, how do I make more money? If you ever want to find the cause of money, it's always ask this question instead, is how do I go about creating more value for more people? How do I serve people, solve problems, or add value in such a way that money's just a natural byproduct, that I'm literally just being a problem solver in people's lives? That's really what an entrepreneur is all about, is being a problem solver. You focus on that and how you help people versus how you help yourself. It's amazing how you'll never have a money problem, because as long as you're giving people what they want, you will always have enough for what you want. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just understand the value within you, the genius that's within you, and how you can take that genius to serve people at the highest level so that you become a massive blessing in people's lives and create greater impact and a ripple effect throughout their lives.
It's good. It's good. I think, when I think about that, because I've had this conversation with several people before about this particular thing. And it goes back even like when you're talking about selling, because when you figure out what the people want and you target the right people, you're no longer really even selling at that point anymore, because now you're in the space where you should be and you're serving the people the way you should be. Right. And then the money comes. So thank you for sharing all that. It's awesome. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome, because when people really know, like you mentioned this, I think earlier, is that when people really buy what you believe in, those values and things like that, they're already attracted to you. They're already coming to you like a beacon towards a light. Like we don't ever do outbound calls or sales or anything like that. Like, it's all inbound. There's all people saying, hey, I like what you've got. how can you help me? And our biggest objective is just, let's see if it even makes sense. Because if we can't do it for you, then we're going to flat out be honest and say, listen, we're not for you. Maybe go talk to our competitor that we hate, or something like that. It could be something of that nature, but it's really awesome when you come from a place of just, how can I help serve you? Right. That for me, it's been just life-changing.
It's good. It's good, Chris. This is awesome. All right. Well, I want to ask you a couple fun questions, kind of off the cuff. Mm-hmm. These are different, not necessarily about money, but fun stuff. So I would love to know, they're personal questions, FYI. I want to know, because it sounds like you got your money and all that in order. I don't know what you do outside of that. I know you're a marathon runner, so you probably are living a fairly healthy life. I'd love to know, what is your one junky guilty pleasure food?
Oh, only one?
Pick the best. You can, if you have two, you can pick two.
I've got two. I'll give you two. It's always been my guilty pleasures: chips and salsa and ice cream. Those are my guilty pleasures right there.
Those are mine. But chips and salsa every Friday night. We go to the little Mexican restaurant around the corner. Chips and salsa every Friday night. It's my thing. I could eat chips and salsa all day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I don't even think it affects my digestive system. I just eat it. It's so good, and I love ice cream. Good stuff.
Amen to that.
All right. First concert you ever attended?
It was, they were both in the same year. I think actually the very first one I attended was the Eagles Hell Freezes Over tour back in 1995.
Good one.
That was awesome because we thought they'd never do a tour again. Of course, now they're touring again, right?
Right.
It was they're back together after 14 years. And when you're a teenager, that was a lifetime ago, right? So that was my very first concert.
Cool. All right. Favorite book?
Oh boy.
You got a lot, I'm sure.
I know. Aside from the Bible and things like that, right? Everybody probably says that. So I don't want to give the common answer. I would say my second favorite after that would probably be How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was my very first personal development book I learned as an entrepreneur. And it's still to this day is so applicable in my life. So that Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I think it's a must read.
Yeah. It's good. It's a good book, by the way. All right. Well, this has been fun. Chris, I appreciate you jumping on here and sharing what you're doing, and congratulations on all your success. Sounds like you're doing some incredible things, and that's awesome. I like to hear that. So it means you're making the world a better place. So if our audience wants to get in touch with you, maybe they want to check out what you got, what's on your site, all that good stuff, podcast, where do we want to send them?
Yeah, two different ways you can do it. You can follow our podcast, the Money Ripples Podcast. I'm really creative, I know. Money Ripples Podcast. You can follow that on YouTube or iTunes, wherever you consume podcasts. Or just go to moneyripples.com.
Perfect. We'll make sure, too, when this goes out, that we get you tagged and get it in the appropriate places so they know where to find you. So all that good stuff. All right. And, of course, we do want to say to our listeners, if you enjoy the show, please head on over to Apple. Give us a review there. You can hit that subscribe button on the YouTube. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start. And every start begins with a decision. You guys take care. Be safe. Be kind to one another. And we will see you next time.